This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News. We are looking at the back of my pickup. This past weekend, we did a parade. Now, in this truck right now are 6 EKX series speakers from Electro Voice. I've got the 18 SP subs, and I've got a 15-inch top, two 15-inch tops, and two 12-inch tops. Now, this particular system I was using in a town parade, and the parade really extends about 3 blocks, 3 smaller city blocks. I mean, it's a town. And then it goes around and back. But basically, everyone is within that 3-block range. So I'm set up in the middle of these 3 blocks. I'm set up here, and I spread my sound system out. Now, this particular time, I had my mixer with me in the middle of the block. And then I went about 50 feet each way to have my first speakers. What I did is I ended up putting a sub and a 15 right at that location. Then I continued on another about 65 feet with some XLR and power cables. And then there I put a 12-inch top. No subs out there. And that gave me my sound system for this parade. A couple of observations. I've done this with different speakers in the past. This is probably the most expensive set of speakers that I have used for this parade in the past. The sound was much better. Obviously, I mean, I'm using subwoofers, I'm using some higher quality speakers. The sound was really good. The part that was really, from my standpoint, kind of cool is that I had set them and kind of, flared them out just a little bit so they would give some nice coverage. And as you walked basically a full block and a half, you were really getting an even sound where I was hearing the highs and the vocals and the bass all the way down the block. So really, almost 2 blocks wide. It was really carrying that far, and it sounded great. The people on the other side of the street had that even sound all the way across the field, and then the people on the side that I was on of the street, of course, if they were right next to the speakers, there was quite a bit of sound, but the people were able to kind of mill around, between the speakers and be able to fill in, so it wasn't really loud for them there. Yes, I had some crank-up stands, and I cranked up those tops so they were about 7 feet in the air. I wanted them up above everyone's head, so then it would also shoot across the street and down the street a lot more. Very good sound quality. Now, when I first started out to set this up, I actually set this up right outside the office here because I wanted to go and try to get a feeling for the settings of it with running 6 speakers like that, combining subs, which can be dialed in for the tops, but now I'm using 2 different tops, so I wanted to kind of play with that a little bit. So I set everything up outside the office right here with all 6 speakers on stands because I wanted to kind of tune the system a little bit and get the settings for what I thought would be the greatest sound. Actually, initially we thought we were going to be playing not next to buildings, but there's an open parking lot, and we thought we'd be in the middle of that parking lot and kind of shooting the sound down the streets. That was my initial plan, and I thought I'd have the speakers within about a 50-foot wide area. And again, we'd be in an open lot so that everything would be kind of this wall of sound. That's what I was after. We set it up outside. I ended up setting the subs, which you can dial those in. I ended up setting the subs, I gave them a 2 dB gain, both of them, and then I went and set them up so that they would be matching up with the EKX, the 15P tops. That's what I set on the little menu on the back. Then on the tops, I started out and I set the tops so it was lined up with the sub, and then on the 12-inch I set them up to line up with the sub, and I played that. I had the tops at 0 all the way across, and then I had the subs with the little bump up because I have 4 tops, 2 subs. The sound, it was okay. I was okay with it. I mean, I was like, yeah, it's pretty good, but I think I can do better. So I started tweaking things and working back and forth a little bit. What I ended up finding that really sounded the best out here in front of the office was the subs. I left the subs pretty much alone, 2 dB gain, and I left it set it for the 15P tops. But on all 4 tops, I found that if I turn them, instead of matching them to the sub, if I turn them all down to a crossover point of 80, so the 12-inch was a crossover point of 80, the 15s were a crossover point of 80, all 4 tops that way, I found that the sound was just a much, I think, fuller sound with that. And as I walked across, so I had the subs, I actually stacked them on top of each other. I put the 15s on stands so I could crank them up to 7.5 feet, and I had the 12s on stands, which I could crank up to 7.5 feet. For my demo out here, I only put them up about 6 feet because I didn't have anyone standing in front of them. I loved it at the 80, the crossover at about 80. The subs filled in nicely. We had this wall of sound, and as we walked across the driveway out here in front of the office, you really had just a nice even sound as you walked in front of the 12s to the 15 to the 15 to the 12. It really, I couldn't detect a difference in the sound from one side to the other, and it was really kind of cool. We had them spread out approximately 50 feet wide in front of the office, and getting that kind of a sound wall was really kind of cool. That was a plan. Get up to the parade, finding out there's no electricity on that side of the street, so we had to come by the building. Had to make some changes in my sound setup. I didn't do anything different with the subs. I ended up putting a sub over by each 15. I spread them again, as I said earlier, out about 50 feet wide, and had the sub set up so it was matching up with the 15p. When I ended up trying the 80 thing, I didn't like the sound. Now, because again, the 12s are so far away from the subs that they really weren't getting that much sub or bass. So I ended up putting all 4 tops, I basically put them to full range. So the 12s are full range way out there, so they were probably about 75 feet, 75, no more than that, probably closer to almost 100 feet, I suppose, away, in give or take. So they were all full range, and that gave me a full bass sound, a nice vocal, the nice highs that covered almost a 2-block area in town for the parade. So I've got a couple of pictures here. Let's take a look at those. We've got the 15-inch top, and then down below you can see I did not have the pole mount. I wanted, again, to crank that 15 up. And then I've got the 18 SP sub. These are all EKX series speakers. And then on the side over here, I've got the 12P top, which is a 12-inch two-way top that did basically the shooting down the street in this particular application. Overall, sound was great. It was interesting this year, and I've always had a couple people come up and say, good job, da-da-da-da-da. This year, I probably had about 24 people come up and say, how much they enjoyed the music and how much what a great job it was. I really didn't do anything different this year than last year, the year before. The only thing that was really different this year was the quality of the sound. And I'm thinking that's probably what the good job was, having a better quality sound coverage over the whole area. So it's a really cool thing. I'll put some links in the description below so you can check out the EKX series from Electro Voice. But their sound quality, dispersion, throw was very cool for this application, and I was really, really quite happy with it. Now I got to unload this. This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News.